Balake. Where is Balake at?
My name's Blake.
Do you want to go to war, Balake? I'm for real. Ron.
Hey, oh, I just realized my microphone isn't plugged in. Oh my goodness. Totally ruined the whole intro. 1 second while I select the right microphone.
Goodness. How's that, guys? Is that a little bit better? Welcome back for more SPTV, where every day is a great day not to be in a cult. Guys, we are going to have some fun today. As you can see, finally back in the studio, finally have the internet working again. The best guess that the technician came up with is that a lightning strike while I was out of town fried the power supply to the internet terminal out in the garage. And that's why it took over 4 days to get the internet restored. But we're back, guys. We are back. And we're going to have a lot of fun today. Yesterday, I uploaded to my channel as a video, not a live stream, uploaded the entirety of the event that was held January 27th, 1986. Was it 87 or 86? Damn, I even forgot that, but we'll take a look at it in a moment. Where David Miscavige and other Scientology executives held an event announcing to all the Scientologists in the world that L. Ron Hubbard had died. Now, they didn't say he died. They said he causatively dropped his body to move on to upper level OT research, for which the body was merely serving as a hindrance, and that he was perfectly healthy and could have lived many more years, but causatively chose to drop the body so that he could go and do this research. In the 34 years I spent in Scientology, I had never seen this event video. In the 10 years that I've been out of Scientology, I had never seen this event video. I hadn't seen segments of it here or there. I had seen that the video existed on YouTube. I had just never watched it. And I was like, you know what? I want to go through this thing. I want to create chapter breaks. I want to put some explanations using text on the screen where I can. And I just couldn't believe that I'd never seen this thing before. And honestly, I couldn't believe what was in the video. And we're going to do a reaction video. We're going to take our time on this. You would think that a video like this, an event like this, would be something that would actually be considered important in the world of Scientology. Don't you think so? Wouldn't you think so? This was an event that this announcement that L. Ron Hubbard died. Not only was it held at the Hollywood Palladium, getting as many Scientologists there as possible, but it was also broadcast live via satellite to all the organizations in the world for which they could set up those kind of services. Every Scientologist in the world was expected to have seen this event. It is also the first time David Miscavige was being introduced to the Scientology public. Public did not know who David Miscavige was. And when you watch this with me, we're going to watch it. We're not going to watch the entire thing. Barb. We're not going to watch the entire thing, but we're going to watch a whole bunch of it. You're going to see why David Miscavige doesn't want Scientologists to see this video. And that's one of the reasons we're going to do a live reaction to it. It is incredible. Those of you who've been watching my channel for a while, maybe watching some of the other SPTV channels, you've heard it said that these two Sea Org members named Pat Broeker and Annie Broeker, who were with L. Ron Hubbard during the 6 years he was in seclusion prior to his death, they were two of the only people to have direct contact, two of maybe 3, 4, or 5 people who were the only people to have any direct contact with L. Ron Hubbard over the last 6 years of his life. It has been said that Pat Broeker and Annie Broeker were supposed to be the two people to take over running Scientology after L. Ron Hubbard died, not David Miscavige. And regardless of whether it was true that Pat and Annie Broeker were supposed to take over Scientology, what is certainly true is that David Miscavige was never selected by L. Ron Hubbard to take over running anything, much less the entire Church of Scientology. Let me just double check real quick, make sure my settings are what they need to be. Okay, we are looking good. In this video, I think it's going to become apparent to you, as it became apparent to me, If prior to this event, David Miscavige had any question about his ability to get rid of Pat Broeker, after this event, it would have been a no-brainer. It would have been an absolute no-brainer. It is crystal clear from this video we're going to watch. Pat Broeker has no business running anything at all. I mean, when I watch this video, Pat Broeker doesn't even come across as a Scientologist to me, much less a Sea Org member, much less a Sea Org executive, much less a high-level, international level Sea Org executive. It's weird. For anyone who spent a lot of time in Scientology or in the Sea organization, there is sort of a persona of the Scientology world would be a beingness that Sea Org executives all tend to have. It's very similar beingness that they all have. Every other Sea Org executive that appears in this video, other than Pat Broeker, has that persona. David Miscavige, Heber Jentzsch, Norman Starkey, Marc Yager. I believe Guillaume Lacerve is on stage, but he doesn't speak. Vicki Aznaran is on stage, but doesn't speak. Absolutely wild. Oh, by the way, for those of you who don't love the long videos, because I'm going to take my time on this video, I do want to shout out the Clips channel. I have, ever since I created the Clips channel, I haven't actually used it, but as of today, that's going to change. I'm going to start taking any videos that I do that are on the longer side and chopping them up a little bit and posting the clips to Growing Up in Scientology Clips. So if you're not yet subscribed to that channel, and if you like the shorter excerpts where I'm not just rambling for hours, highly recommended, guys. 9 out of 10 SPs recommend the Clips channel. Okay, so let's see. I could talk about this all day long, but why don't we watch it instead? Okay, let's see. Make sure I'm sharing this properly. I think I want to look at it this way. That seems good. Okay, yeah, January 27th, 1986. Okay, so very early 1986. Yeah. So we're going to skip things like the massive 5-minute long standing ovations, which happen about every 10 minutes. We're going to skip the massive musical numbers that they play and all that kind of stuff. Let's just do this.
Ladies and gentlemen, the event starts now.
This musical intro lasts for 3 entire minutes. You are about to see, for the first time, the tiny David Miscavige coming out on stage, almost just taller than the podium. Here it is.
Thank you. Thank you. Hello. My name is David Miscavige, and I'm very happy that you could all make it to this important briefing this evening.
Okay. Part of me wants to say that I promise I'm not going to stop this video every 20 seconds, but the other part of me is like, this is a reaction video. This is probably the last time David Miscavige has ever introduced himself in a room of Scientologists. Almost nobody in this event hall has any idea who David Miscavige is as he walks in front of them right now. And nobody knew they were about to announce that L. Ron Hubbard died. You're going to see the discomfort. Miscavige is about to try and soften the blow of announcing L. Ron Hubbard's death by making this weird announcement about L. Ron Hubbard having completed his OT research. And the hall goes wild. And you can see the discomfort on Miscavige's face. That's like, uh-oh, I might have misframed this thing. These people are expecting good news, and I'm about to hit them with something else.
Okay, how about now? In 1980, LRH moved off the lines so that he could continue his writings and researches without any distractions. For many years, Ron had said that if he were given the time and if others wore their hats and did their jobs running and expanding the church, he would be able to concentrate on and complete all of his researches into the upper OT levels so that the bridge would be laid out in full for us all. Over the past 6 years,
okay, I'm going to pause it right there. It is, this is just occurring to me right now. That is what Scientologists believe is the explanation for L. Ron Hubbard being off into hiding. They don't call it hiding. They call it seclusion for the last 6 years of his life, is he needed to dedicate himself to finishing his research into the upper OT levels to salvage this sector of the Galactic Federation. But what just occurred to me is there's something else L. Ron Hubbard was doing during those 6 years. He wrote the Decology, the 10-part series Mission Earth books, which are incredibly sexually perverted. And he wrote Battlefield Earth. This is just something I actually never spent any time thinking about as a Scientologist. It never occurred to me to think, if he was supposed to be off doing this like humanity saving research, why was he writing science fiction books? I'd never even actually had that thought until just now. If you guys have any guesses, let me know in the live chat or the comments section. All right, here we go.
Ellerate full for us all. Over the past 6 years, LRH has indeed been intensively researching the upper bands of OT. You are already enjoying the fruits of some of these researches, most notably solo knots. And more recently, you heard in Ron's Journal 39 that he had...
Okay, so I know the explanation is there on the screen, but solo knots is OT7. OT7 and solo knots are one and the same. New era knots means new era Dianetics for OTs. And this is a phrase that Scientologists who do not know what's on the OT levels are still familiar with this word knots, NED, new era Dianetics, knots, new era Dianetics for OTs. They know knots is OT5. They know solo knots is OT7. What they don't know is that new era Dianetics for OTs basically means the processes by which you telepathically communicate with this alien spirits that are stuck to your body and convince them to leave. Scientologists don't know that that's what that means until they get to those levels.
He had fully written up OT8, which would be released 39.
Sorry.
That he had, and more recently, you heard in Ron's Journal 39 that he had fully written up OT8, which would be released at the appropriate time by international management. As you may have surmised.
So by the way, what that means is that as we're watching this event video, OT8 had not yet been released. Now, what's confusing to me is that it did just sound like, based on what he said about you're already enjoying the fruits of solo knots, it sounds like OT7 is already released. But it also sounds like, from what he says later, no one has yet finished OT7. OT7 takes years and years and years and years and years. And then later in this event video, someone mentions that, I think it might even be David Miscavige, mentions that Senior CSN, Marc Yager, is going to finish solo knots and Dave's going to supervise him on it. It's weird. We'll get to it. But OT8 has not yet been released. OT8 was released when the ship was christened, the Freewinds ship, and that has not occurred yet as of this video.
LRH has completed many levels beyond that. Approximately 2 weeks ago, he completed all of his researches he had set out to do.
That's a look of panic, my friends.
He has now moved on to his next OT level of OT research. This level is beyond anything any one of us ever imagined. This level is in fact done in an exterior state, meaning...
Exterior state means, I know some of you guys already know all this stuff, but I'm just for the newcomers. In Scientology, they say you are an immortal spiritual soul that exists independently of your body and even of the physical universe, but that through various tricks and decisions and whatnot, You've sort of come to believe that you are part of the physical universe, that you rely on a body for life, that you are your body, but that through Scientology auditing, you can basically obtain the ability to essentially exteriorize from your body at will, but without your body dying, to basically have an out-of-body experience, but causatively, knowingly, willfully, and with full perceptions, and to be able to do it at will, to just go in and out of your body, but still operate your body at will. And it's one thing that Scientologists are all very much hoping they will achieve with auditing. They are promised they will achieve it with auditing. No one's ever achieved it with auditing, but a lot of Scientologists pretend that they have achieved it. And so, but you'll notice sort of the gasp when he says this next OT level is actually done exterior from the body. All other auditing in Scientology is obviously done in the body, holding on to the cans of the e-meter. And so he's saying something that is very tantalizing to Scientologists.
Level is in fact done in an exterior state, meaning that it is done completely exterior from the body. At this level of OT, the body is nothing more than an impediment and encumbrance to any further gain as an OT. Thus, at 2000 hours Friday, the 24th of January, AD 36, L. Ron Hubbard discarded the body he had used in this lifetime for 74 years, 10 months, and 11 days. The body he had used to facilitate his existence in this messed universe had ceased to be useful, and in fact, had become an impediment to the work he now must do outside of its confines. We felt it was important as Scientologists that you were the first to become aware of this fact. I can understand that many of you are probably experiencing the effects of a secondary. However, it is important that you can put this into the proper perspective. LRH defines a body in the tech dictionary as an identifying form or non-identifying form to facilitate the control of, the communication of, and with, and the havingness of the Thetan in his existence in the meshed universe. The body is a physical object. It is not the being himself. The being we knew as L. Ron Hubbard still exists. However, the body he had could no longer serve his purposes. This decision was one made at complete cause by L. Ron Hubbard. Although you may feel grief, understand that he did not and does not now.
Okay, so it is interesting to me to note that it is very, very important at this event for Scientology management to emphasize and reiterate over and over again that L. Ron Hubbard's body did not fail on him, that his body did not die, his body did not stop working, there was nothing physically, medically wrong with his body, and it was just L. Ron Hubbard choosing to let it go to accomplish other things that he needed to accomplish. It is so important for Scientology management to emphasize this point, because if Scientologists were to believe anything otherwise, it would negate and minimize, and it would contradict the entire purpose of Scientology, the entire point of Scientology. Scientology is supposed to put you cause over life, cause over mess. He used the word mess there in the video, and I put the definition of it at the bottom of the video. Matter, energy, space, and time. It's Scientology's little acronym for the physical universe. The Thetan is supposed to be superior to the physical universe. We're supposed to be living in the matrix, where the world is our sandbox, and we control it, just like Morpheus and Neo can instantly give themselves powers in the real world by, either downloading or uploading software. It's supposed to be very much that kind of relationship between Thetans, Theta, the Theta universe, and the mesh universe, the physical universe. You're not supposed, Scientology auditing and reaching the state of full operating Thetan is supposed to put you into a position where basically the physical universe is your bitch. Like, it's not possible for your body to just die on you. Maybe if it was like 110 years old, but LRH was only 70 something. And so you'll notice, for me, David Miscavige is doing a pretty good job of not being too heavy-handed in making that point. But boy, when Pat Broeker gets on the stage, he is awful. He is horrible. He is like really trying to shove it in anyone's faces, where it's almost like he did this on purpose, and you really get the sense of, and don't you dare believe otherwise. Like, it's really it gets weird. All right, let's keep going.
He has simply moved on to his next step. LRH has said, if I have fought for a quarter of a century, most of it alone, to keep this work from serving to uphold the enslavers of man, to keep it free from some destructive pitch or slant, then you certainly can carry that motif a little further. He goes on to say, I'll not always be here on guard. The stars twinkle in the Milky Way, and the wind sighs for songs across the empty fields of a planet, a galaxy away. As Scientologists, we know more than anyone that we are not bodies.
Okay, good. I'm going to have to stop it here, and I'm going to rewind it. Guys, you have heard me mention in my videos, depending on how long you've been watching, that one of the things Scientologists are trying to accomplish in this lifetime by doing as much Scientology as possible is to achieve the ability, the spiritual awareness and ability to come back next lifetime and have full and total recall of everything they did in Scientology this lifetime. Now, also, the auditing they get in this lifetime is supposed to allow them to recover all full memory and knowledge of all of their previous lifetimes for the last like 76 trillion years. But Scientologists are terrified because they do believe that you live lifetime after lifetime over and over and over again, and that there's no heaven or hell. You just come back to this earth, picking up a new body over and over and over again. Scientologists are kind of terrified that they're going to die. They're going to not be able to retain their memories of this lifetime, and they're going to have to be reborn next lifetime, and they're going to have to rediscover Scientology all over again. And, you know, L. Ron Hubbard says that when you die without Scientology auditing, you are pre-programmed to report to the in-between lives implant station on either the far side of the moon or Venus or Mars or wherever. And your spirit memory gets wiped, and you're like electronically beamed back down into a baby body with full amnesia to live another lifetime on this prison planet. Scientologists are trying to regain the ability to be causative over the cycle of birth and death, and to be able to retain their past life memories. I have said that all Scientologists in the world, except for the people who were working at the International Management Base back when L. Ron Hubbard died, were led to believe L. Ron Hubbard was not coming back. It wasn't until I watched this full video yesterday that I was like, oh my God, even what they said at L. Ron Hubbard's own funeral announcement or death announcement, this quote from L. Ron Hubbard essentially means, I'm not coming back. Because otherwise, why would he say, I won't always be here on guard? Why not? You've told us that we're all doomed to come back over and over and over again. Why not you? Okay, there's some reference in Scientology. I always fail to like really put my finger on the exact one, where L. Ron Hubbard says he's going off to Target 2. Now, that means he's going off to some unnamed planet in some other galaxy or other solar system, at least, to get Scientology started on another planet. And that's the reason Scientologists aren't expecting him to come back. Now, I was shocked back in 2009 when I started hearing former Scientology executives saying that the Sea Org members working at the international base were told that L. Ron Hubbard was supposed to come back about 18 or 20 years after his death. Scientologists in the world were not told that. I don't know why people at International Management were told something different. But so I present for you Exhibit A. I'm going to rewind it. This quote from L. Ron Hubbard. Let me know what you guys think in the comments section or the live chat. This means I'm not coming back. Let me pull it back up.
We say, I'll not always be free from some destructive pitch or slant. Then you certainly can carry that motif a little further. He goes on to say, I'll not always be here on guard. The stars twinkle in the Milky Way, and the wind sighs for songs across the empty fields of a planet, a galaxy away. As Scientologists, we know more than anyone that we are not bodies. We have bodies. And our current existences in our current bodies are but one in a million that we have lived and will live. LRH, in fact, used this lifetime in the body we knew to accomplish what no man has ever accomplished. He unlocked the mysteries of life and gave us the tools so that we could free ourselves and our fellow man.
Okay, good. I just want to say, okay, when you have, like, if you're David Miscavige and you want to make the argument that you were the guy L. Ron Hubbard picked to take over, wouldn't the fact that you were literally the master of ceremonies at the event announcing L. Ron Hubbard's death maybe be something that you kind of wanted to put out there? Like, hey, look, guys, I mean, I must have had some serious cred with the old man because I IMC'd the freaking announcement of his death. Up until now, do you agree that this would seem like the kind of video that Miscavige would make sure every Scientologist in the world saw every now and then? Just wait, you guys.
L. Ron Hubbard completed everything he set out to do and more. The fact that he causatively and willingly discarded the body after it was no longer useful, to him signifies his ultimate success, the conquest of life that he embarked upon half a century ago.
Okay, good. We'll skip the multi-minute standing ovation. And, oh, this is a weird one, guys. David Miscavige introduces L. Ron Hubbard's attorney. And I actually don't want to watch this whole part, but let's just watch a little bit
In the future, the attorney who handled this, I want to bring on attentions were you of a few more. The rest of this event is devoted to informing you of a few more details of this matter and what LRH's intentions were, and also a look to the future. The first person I want to bring on here with me is Mr. Earl Cooley, who was the attorney who handled this matter at the time. Please welcome him.
Introduced as the attorney who handled this matter at the time. Not exactly some sort of a stellar introduction. Now, I've watched this whole segment. This whole segment is not even particularly interesting. It's very weird, actually. I think the audience would probably be under the impression that this guy wasn't even a Scientologist. My understanding is that at least by the end of his life, Earl Cooley very much did become a Scientologist. I am aware of people being sent out to audit him, particularly towards the end of his life. What I want to show you is a very interesting way that he plays with L. Ron Hubbard's words and puts words into L. Ron Hubbard's mouth at the end of his speech. He basically announces that LRH left behind some money for his kids and some other people and left everything else to Scientology. And that by doing this, L. Ron Hubbard has said, and then he puts a whole bunch of words into L. Ron Hubbard's mouth as if he's actually quoting Hubbard, but he's very much not. So here, let me try to find the end here. Nope. We'll back up. Sorry, guys.
Hold your hands. You can do it all. Your future and his confidence in the present management of the church is by.
Okay.
Thus, by the decision to continue his work outside the confines of his body, and by the decision to do it now, and to make Scientology the principal object of his generosity, L. Ron Hubbard has given the ultimate expression of his love for you and his confidence in the present management of the church.
Do you guys agree that he's speaking in a way as if he were not himself a Scientologist? He's not saying we, he's not saying us, that kind of stuff.
He has, in effect, told us,
oh, there it is.
The church is in good hands. You can do it all. Your future is assured. Secure in this knowledge, I choose to go about my work elsewhere.
What?
You have all of the tools
Doesn't it sound like he's reading a speech? He's literally putting words into L. Ron Hubbard's mouth.
You have all of the resources to take this planet and to save mankind. Support and rally behind your leaders. Together, you will win total victory and achieve the ultimate goals of Scientology. Take what I have given you.
What?
With my love.
You've got it. He just made up a speech. He just made up a speech. I can't get over it, you guys. We have to watch this again. I'm sorry. I hope you guys don't mind. He just made up an entire speech as if it was L. Ron Hubbard's.
Thus, by the decision to continue his work outside the confines of his body, and by the decision to do it now, and to make Scientology the principal object of his generosity, L. Ron Hubbard has given the ultimate expression of his love for you and his confidence in the present management of the church. He has, in effect, told us the church is in good hands. You can do it all. Your future is assured. Secure in this knowledge, I choose to go about my work elsewhere. You have all of the tools. You have all of the resources to take this planet and to save mankind. Support and rally behind your leaders. Together, you will win total victory and achieve the ultimate goals of Scientology. Take what I have given you with my love.
That was some of the best bait and switch I have ever seen. If I was in that audience and I was not very carefully paying attention, I would have thought that this guy was reading a statement that was prepared by L. Ron Hubbard and given to him to read. And yet that is absolutely not what occurred. He just made all that up. Okay, the next segment of this is the real star of the show, the one and only Pat Broeker. Okay, now I said in the beginning, I can't remember. I've said it in a million videos. It has been widely reported that Pat and Annie Broeker were the ones who were supposed to take over Scientology when L. Ron Hubbard died. There was an issue that was published shortly after or immediately after L. Ron Hubbard's death, promoting Pat and Annie, just Pat and Annie, to the new rank called loyal officer. Now, loyal officer is sort of a buzzword in Scientology because loyal officer appears in the Xenu story in OT3, that it was some loyal officers who managed to like overthrow Xenu and lock him up in a prison or some shit like that. So a loyal officer, there's no status or title of loyal officer in the Sea Org. It doesn't exist. The highest rank in the Sea Org is captain. L. Ron Hubbard's rank was Commodore. And I think if I recall correctly, I don't want to misstate it. I don't remember whether L. Ron Hubbard promoted himself to admiral or anything like that, but I do know Pat and Annie Broeker were promoted to the rank of loyal officer, and the implication is they are in charge now. And that doesn't necessarily mean Pat and Annie were going to take over running all of Scientology. No single person was ever supposed to take over running Scientology. It could have just meant that Pat and Annie were going to be in charge of the reorganization and making sure the proper committees were put in place to run Scientology. That being said, once this issue was published and distributed far and wide, David Miscavige ordered all copies of them rounded up and destroyed and claimed that Pat had forged this document. Well, of course, that's what he claimed, right? But okay, I won't put the cart before the horse here. I will let you hear how David Miscavige himself introduces Pat Broeker. Now, this is why David Miscavige does not want Scientologists to see this video.
When LRH left in 1980 to do his researches, he took with him his two most trusted friends and companions. These two people were Pat Broeker and Annie Broeker. They lived and worked with him for the last 6 years during the time period of this research. And this evening, Pat Broeker is here to speak to you in regards to that. Please welcome him.
Okay, good. Just like this was the first time anyone was really hearing of David Miscavige, it was also the first time anyone was really hearing of Pat Broeker. The Scientology public at large did not really know who the people were at the tippy top of management, of CMO International, the Watchdog Committee. They sure as heck did not know who was off with L. Ron Hubbard. And the fact that David Miscavige is personally calling Pat and Annie Broeker L. Ron Hubbard's closest friends and confidants, that is why David Miscavige doesn't want any Scientologist to ever see this video. By the way, Pat Broeker is still alive. He's out there, guys. Someone ought to find him. He has never said a word about Scientology. I believe Tony Ortega was able to make contact with him a number of years ago. He basically said, lose my number, don't contact me, forget I exist. Annie Broeker unfortunately stayed in Scientology. She had tried to escape. Marty Rathbun intercepted her at an airport, brought her back to the international base, where she worked until she died as a low-level Sea Org member at the International Management Base in Riverside County, California. At the very, very end of her life, she was moved into some apartments across from the Celebrity Center, where she died of cancer. Her family was not even informed that she had passed. Her family didn't learn until at least 6 months later that she had, in fact, passed. So literally the two most important figures in L. Ron Hubbard's life for the last 6 years of his life were turned into non-persons as far as Scientology and Scientologists are concerned. Let's see what Pat Broeker has to say.
Can everyone hear me okay? If there's anyone who can't, then please move to where you can.
The freaking event's been going on for 20 minutes. There's already been 2 speakers. And this absolute genius is like, if you can't hear me, please get to where you can. Oh my God. Okay.
Okay. As David mentioned, it was my honor to serve under him these last 6 years.
Guys, when I was editing this video, I rewatched this point like 10 times. I do not know what is physically happening to his body here, but we're going to have to watch this. Here we go.
Okay. My honor. As David mentioned, it was my honor to serve under him. Okay. As David mentioned, it was my honor to serve under him these last 6 years, and before that, in the Sea Org in general. And there is just no greater honor. Those of you know in the Sea Org and his friends know exactly what I'm talking about.
Don't you think otherwise?
Specifically, because I was close to him these last 6 years, there's 4 very, very important subjects that I want to discuss with you, just very briefly.
Somebody get the man a glass of water for the love of Xenu.
Firstly, I want to talk to you a little bit more detail, as David mentioned, about his decision. And yes, it was absolutely his causative decision.
And don't you dare think otherwise.
To discard that body. Around January, late January 1982, he made a significant breakthrough on what is now new OTA, Truth Revealed. And it was at that time that he found the primary cause for amnesia on the whole track, as he mentioned in that Ron's journal, RJ39, I think it is.
Okay, I just have to say something here, and maybe this is more for the former Scientologists in the crowd. Please let me know your thoughts on this in the live chat or in the comments section. Now that I know what's actually on OT8, the whole idea of saying it cures amnesia on the whole track is laughable. But here's what I never truly understood. You're already expected to be able to recall your past lives in New Era Dianetics on up. You're already expected to not have amnesia on your whole track. How does it make sense to say that L. Ron Hubbard, who Scientologists already believe had full and total recall of his whole track, found out in his upper level OT research the real cause of amnesia on the whole track? That never made any sense to me. Especially makes even less sense to me now that I've actually tried to think about it a little bit. And I'd be curious to get any of your guys' thoughts on that.
That opened up to him significant stretches of track that were previously unavailable and or in some cases not even known about. Now I'm going to show you right now. I don't know if you'll be able to see it in you in the audience, but as this is being televised, I'm going to show it to the camera so that later, if you see a tape of this, you can then see what I'm displaying. I have here a worksheet from one of his sessions in later 1982.
Guys, real quick, a worksheet is a Scientology. I mean, it's a regular word, but in Scientology, all auditing is done with an e-meter and paper where you take notes, and the paper is called your worksheets. Now, take note of this. An auditing worksheet is divided down the middle with a line. It is a fool's cap sheet of paper, so it's not letter size, it's legal size paper, and every auditing worksheet has a line down the middle, and you write on the left side, and then you write on the right side. Top down on the left, top down on the right. Keep that in mind because it's going to become relevant. In other words, Pat Broeker's full of shit here, but I just wanted to give you one reason why.
This makes up now what is OT10 character.
So Pat is saying that he's about to show you a select portion of L. Ron Hubbard's auditing worksheets from an OT10 session.
Now I've Xeroxed this worksheet, and in so doing, I took the liberty of blocking out a section above what I want to show you and a section below.
The chuckle here is that whatever's on OT10 is so powerful that if you were to see what was in L. Ron Hubbard's worksheets, you would basically be struck dead by a lightning bolt or something similar. Basically, he's doing it for your sake and your protection, and Scientologists do think that's kind of funny.
When you do OT10, you'll thank me, and you'll understand.
Now, I also want to say the fact that he just said that, when you do OT10, you'll thank me and you'll understand, implies that he has done OT10. Is there any other way to interpret those words? Because I can't think of any other. How would he know what's on OT9 and OT10 or who? Do you see what I'm saying? Do you guys take the way I take it? He is basically implying he's done OT10. Now, as he is standing on this stage and he is going to make claims that OT9 and 10 are done and ready to go, David Miscavige at this point doesn't even know that that's a lie, because David Miscavige wasn't with L. Ron Hubbard the last 6 years of L. Ron Hubbard's life. Pat and Annie were. Pat knows that what he's saying about OT9 and 10 is a lie. David Miscavige doesn't.
I hope that's clear there. This block that you can see consists of series of numbers, 3 numbers, comma, another.
Okay, that is an entire piece of fool's cap paper with a date written on it. And the date, if we take segments of 3 digits, right? Digit, 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 comma, digit, 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 comma. I think he says it goes the date goes 15 commas across and 12 rows down. He is basically saying, oh my God, the track that L. Ron Hubbard was addressing, the incidents, the memories that he was addressing on OT10 were so old, like so closer to the, I guess what thetans are supposed to have been around for 76 trillion years. Here's what's crazy. That number right there is a hell of a lot bigger than 76 trillion years. So he's sort of creating this mystery of like, it's like, so what would this even mean? What would this even mean? First of all, to say thetans have been around for 76 trillion years is weird because thetans don't exist in time. So how can you say how much time they've existed for? Also, the time only exists in the physical universe, and thetans exist independently of the physical universe. Don't think about it too deeply, guys. You might realize you're in a cult. But L. Ron Hubbard does say that we've been around for about 76 trillion years, and yet Pat is sitting here being like, oh, it's basically creating a mystery. Oh my God, it's so mysterious. It's so powerful that L. Ron Hubbard dated an incident to this thing. But he's showing you a number, just a big fat number written in the middle of an auditing worksheet. And he's saying that he blocked out what came before it and he blocked out what came after it. But that's not possible because an auditing worksheet is split down the middle and this number is just written across the entire page. Something ain't adding up, Pat. And I don't know how Pat wouldn't know this. Like, at least put it in a way that would like be obvious to Scientologists.
Another 3 numbers, comma, and it's about, well, it's 12 down and it's 15 across. This there is a date. Yeah.
Yes, ladies and gentlemen, they're about to give a several-minute standing ovation because the man on the stage showed them a date on a paper that he claimed had been written by LRH in an auditing session. Tell me again how Scientologists have convinced themselves they don't worship L. Ron Hubbard. I mean, it's absolutely insane. Okay, so let's see. All right, let's go past the standing ovation.
Well, it took him 2 years. He's done these last 6 years. Okay. To show you the significance. I wanted to show you the significance, the magnitude of the research he's done these last 6 years. This level took him 2 years.
Okay, there you go, guys. He very specifically said L. Ron Hubbard took 2 years to finish OT10. This is probably the only place that something like that has ever been said. There is nothing I've ever written or heard in Scientology talking about L. Ron Hubbard, anything specific to do with L. Ron Hubbard and OT9 and 10. This is yet another one of the reasons that David Miscavige does not want Scientologists to see this video.
Well, in that 2-year period, he did OT9 orders of magnitude and OT10 character. Around about summer 1984, he said at that time that he would not be able to, that he would soon come to a point, and he knew approximately where it was, but there were things intervening from where he was to where he knew he would find this phenomena that in which he would have to discard the body and do it completely free from encumbrances. This was in summer 1984. As we approached the end of the year, he was just about there, discovered something else, called it off, went on into finishing this, went back with rear view mirrors to then complete, finalize, and polish up what he had been doing since 1980, these advanced levels, and then proceeded on.
What? Okay, guys, there's something else I just want to point out here. So I said earlier that one when you have David Miscavige and Pat Broeker and the other Scientology executives who we're going to see on stage, a couple of which are going to speak, only Pat Broeker is the one who is speaking and acting and behaving in a way completely uncharacteristic of a Sea Org executive. I personally believe that it is because he is actually the only one on that stage who knows that everything he's saying is a lie. I do believe that is the explanation.
Until he got to that point. And then on January 19th, he stated that this was it. And he then handled in session those things that were necessary so that he could completely sever all ties. All ties.
Okay, I just had another thought. If David Miscavige was going to be the person selected to take over running Scientology, don't you think that would have been announced at this event? That is also one of the reasons David Miscavige does not want any Scientologists to see this event. Pat just said that L. Ron Hubbard on January 19th decided he handled what he needed to handle. Now it was okay to drop the body. And then he put some affairs in order. Would we not believe that some of the affairs he was going to put in order was who's taking over running the show? And wouldn't that have been one of the most important things to announce at the event where you announce that L. Ron Hubbard has died? So David Miscavige might be the MC of this event, but he then introduced Pat, who, by the way, refers to Dave as Dave or David. I'm watching this event. I'm looking at this and I'm going, okay, so Pat's the guy. Pat's the one talking about the OT levels. Pat's the one talking about L. Ron Hubbard. Pat's the one being introduced as L. Ron Hubbard's closest friend. And that is why, that's what prompted me to make this little statement, is because, according to Pat, L. Ron Hubbard had like maybe a week or so between the time he allegedly decided he was going to die and the time that he actually died. Do you know one of the people he did not summon to come and see him before he died? David Miscavige. David Miscavige did not see or speak with L. Ron Hubbard, not even in the last 5 to 7 days before his death. But Pat did. All right, here we go.
Which, by the way, is research in itself, because we now know what those ties are because he wrote it up. And then on January 24th, he laid down in his bed.
Okay, so that's 5 days later. I think he said on January 19th, LRH said, okay, good, I'm going to drop the body. And then, so we had 5 days to contact David Miscavige, say anything to David Miscavige, and L. Ron Hubbard did not do that.
And he left. And that was it. And the attorneys were notified, and the rest is as Mr. Cooley described. During that week from the 19th to the 24th, he knew I would be, at some time or another, addressing you Scientologists, and he expressly stated that I was to tell you that there was to be no grief, no mourning.
Okay, that's an interesting statement. And, you know, in some of the videos and interviews that I've done, and particularly what comes to mind is videos I've done with Reese, Relatable Reese. She tells a story in recent memory, the last few years, of going to a funeral or a celebration of life event at the local Scientology org, and people were not allowed to cry or show grief or show emotion. And I know there's always been a part of me that when I hear about that, I go, yeah, but it's not like it's against the rules to cry, or it's not. There's a part of me that, like, yes, it's true, Scientologists do not like negative emotions, but it's not like it's against the rules per se, depending on how you think about it. It wasn't until I watched this video yesterday that it kind of dawned on me. What you just heard is sort of the precedent for not showing negative emotion at a Scientology funeral or a Scientology, you know, they don't really call them funerals. They just sort of call them, I guess they call them celebrations of life. But this is it. L. Ron Hubbard saying, do not let them show sorrow or grief. Let's hear that one more time.
Addressing you Scientologists, and he's expressly stated that I was to tell you that there was to be no grief, no mourning. Because he asked, I told him that of course I would say that, and he said, do you think there will be some anyway? I said, quite possibly. And he reiterated it. He said, well, you tell him, don't let there be even the remotest possibility that some will try to unintentionally invalidate themselves. They know they're not a body. Don't let them be confused.
And don't you dare think otherwise. It's interesting that at this stage, what, 1986, Scientology's already been around for 34, 36 years, depending on whether you start the clock at 1950 or 1952. And it's amazing that even at this late stage, they're still sort of trying to enforce the idea that you will come back, that you are a thing, that you are not a body. It's funny that they're having to like reinforce this so many times and so heavily, considering it's one of the most basic principles of Scientology. That's what you learn day one. It's sort of the principle upon which all of the procedures of Scientology auditing are based. Having me watching this video for the first time yesterday, one of the things that struck me was how heavy-handed they seemed in constantly reminding the Scientologists that you're not a body. Now, I realize it is a very unusual one-off situation of L. Ron Hubbard dying and trying to minimize whatever impact this is going to have on the group or people's level of belief overall. So I'm just saying, it came across to me as heavy-handed. And I thought that was an interesting sort of pivot of like, if you are sad that L. Ron Hubbard died, then on some level, you are invalidating your own spiritual immortality. Because if you don't believe that L. Ron Hubbard was an immortal spirit and the body was just a meat sack, then that means you don't believe it about yourself. And you're invalidating yourself. It's an interesting little twist. Pretty manipulative, if you ask me. All right, let's fast forward through this. Yes, that is really how long the standing ovation was.
Second thing I want to mention is that for the first time since 1980, was the management of the church able to be totally, completely weaned from his having to take over and straighten things out.
Guys, I thought I understood that sentence the first time that he said it, but now that I'm hearing it for the second time, I'm confused. I understand the concept of management being weaned off of having to get help from L. Ron Hubbard, but when is he saying that this has happened for the first time since 1980? Am I hearing it wrong? Let's listen to it again.
Completely. The management of, was the management of the church able, for the first time.
Sorry, guys.
Second thing I want to mention is that for the first time since 1980,
for the first time since 1980. This is what I'm confused about. So 1980, he goes into seclusion. Now, the governments were told that L. Ron Hubbard was not running Scientology. He very much was still running Scientology. So if he's saying for the first time since 1980, let's see.
Was the management of the church able to be totally, completely weaned from his having to take over and straighten things out?
Okay. I mean, let's just assume he misspoke or something, because it sort of seems like if we are to take his words at face value, he's saying like, it took L. Ron Hubbard literally dying. And for the last 5 days, for the first time since 1980, management has been able to be completely weaned off of having to rely on L. Ron Hubbard for guidance. That's how I read it. Anyway, that's how I understand it. Like, way to just throw shade at international management.
What that produced was it allowed him to do his own hat.
Okay, now it sounds like he's saying management has been weaned off of L. Ron Hubbard since 1980.
The third thing I want to mention is what's going to happen to the tech.
Oh, God.
That's easy. Firstly, there's existing materials. So what happens to the tech is it stays exactly like it is.
This might actually be one of the other reasons David Miscavige doesn't want people to see this video is, you know, Scientologists who've been around for a while already know that every time David Miscavige does some major new re-release of a Scientology property, whether it's a book, a lecture series, the tech volumes, the admin volumes, whatever, he always says, now it's 100% pure LRH. Everything else that wasn't LRH was thrown away. We've removed all the arbitraries. We've removed all the alter-is. I think he already knows that every time he releases something, he says the same shit. I think he doesn't want people to see that they were literally saying that all the way back in 1986 as well.
With one exception, is that currently for some time, for 3-4 years, there's been an exhaustive search for those issues that got sandbagged through somehow or another.
Somehow or another. Nobody knows how Scientology issues get approved.
And what we're doing is checking them against LRH's tapes. He gave conferences and briefings. His words are there. Those things that came off his typewriter, those things that were written under his own hand. And
how do they know what came off his typewriter? Anybody could forge a typed issue and claim it was written by L. Ron Hubbard.
Dispatches and notes that were written by Commodore's messengers, which can actually be verified, to completely sort out the wheat from the chaff, the truth from the crap. And you've seen some of these in the past years. We're coming right down to the road on that. And there's going to be just a little bit more, because luckily those alleged Thetans involved haven't been with us in a number of years. And so we're almost at the end of that.
That is exactly what David Miscavige says every time he re-releases something that he already said previously was verified to be 100% pure standard LRH. He blames it on people who have long since been shot from guns, is how Miscavige usually puts it. That usually means they've been expelled from Scientology or they've, well, that's what that means. I guess in some cases it could mean they've died. But it's funny to see Pat Broeker saying the exact same thing back in 1986.
By the way, the percentage of that, get the idea of all the tapes, all the tapes, all the books, all the policy letters, all the bulletins, all the films, all the writings, all the collected works. Just get that idea, just one copy each. Get the idea of how much that would be, what kind of space that would consume. Among that now, it would probably fill this stage. Among that now are the ones that we're weeding out, which would amount to, I would say, about that much.
If you ever want to unintentionally explain how horrifically inefficient and misprioritized your organization is, you could say what Pat Broeker just said. These guys say these things. David Miscavige does the same thing. They say these over-the-top things as if they're supposed to be impressive. And instead, they're horrific examples of inefficiency. So if you really had a stage full of documents, and the only amount, I'm trying to find and the only amount of things that were wrong was this amount, boop, this tiny amount, boop. Why would you spend 4 years finding it and getting rid of it? It's absolutely silly. All right, let's see what else he's got here.
It's insignificant. That's the existing tech. What I'm saying is 99.99999 stays. Now, the new stuff.
Yeah, exactly. So he's saying they've been spent the last 4 years finding the 0.00001% of Scientology material that wasn't actually authored by L. Ron Hubbard. Like it's so stupid, and he's just making this shit up, obviously. But you get the sense that they're so disingenuous that they're just coming up with these things.
OT8 is completely written up and currently in the hands of international management, as you know. What's going to happen is Senior CSN Ray Midoff has promised me that he's full bore on finishing his solo knots, and he's going to be the...
Okay, so here's what I take away from this. Even Senior CSN, the Senior Case Supervisor International, is the senior most technical position in Scientology. They're ultimately responsible for overseeing all auditor training and all training of auditors. Even Senior CSN at this point has not finished OT7. But Pat Broeker has sort of implied he's already done OT9 and 10. Let's see what else he says here.
Be the first full bore. Senior CSN Ray Midoff has promised me that he's full bore on finishing his solo knots, and he's going to be the first one to do it, and I'm going to CS it. And at that time, Ray will, possibly even before he's done with it, we'll have a few of the other CSs in.
Okay, now this is interesting. So he basically says Ray Midoff, the Senior CS International, who, by the way, is one of the Scientology executives who also has been disappeared. Ray Midoff has not appeared at a Scientology event in, I'm going to say, 10 or more years. And yet, people are told that he is still Senior Case Supervisor International. There certainly is not a new Senior Case Supervisor International. Just one of the many. People talk about Shelly Miscavige being missing. At least people aren't supposed to see Shelly Miscavige. Do you know who people are supposed to see? Ray Midoff. Okay, so he's saying Ray Midoff is going to be the first person to finish OT7. And then he said, I am going to CS it. CS, case supervisor, can be a noun. It can also be a verb. So a case supervisor oversees the auditing, reviews the notes of an auditing session after the session and verifies whether the auditor, or in this case, solo auditor, did the procedure correctly. Everything looks fine. And they either give them a stamp of approval and say, very well done, or they issue a correction. at a certain level of the bridge, you can oversee someone's auditing, even if you haven't yourself finished that level of auditing. You have to at least have started it. So for example, on OT5, there's a lot of Sea Org Class 9 auditors who deliver OT5 who have not themselves finished OT5. They are only required to themselves have started OT5. When I was in the Sea Org in LA, I worked at the Advanced Organization of Los Angeles. That's where the OT levels are delivered. It was amazing to me how many of the NOTS auditors, the Class 9 auditors who audited NOTS OT5, had not finished OT5. And it was basically held over their head that they didn't deserve to complete OT5 unless their production was consistently at a high enough level. It was treated like they had to earn doing the auditing that they were actually delivering to someone else. It's very weird. So in this case, I guess what's confusing is that we can assume that Pat has at least started OT7, but he has also implied that he already knows what OT9 is and 10 is, which you shouldn't know unless you did those levels yourself. But he's also describing Ray Midoff as being the first person to finish OT7. You see how it gets a little weird? It's almost like he can't keep track of his own lies.
First priority being the ship's crew who are necessary to deliver this. And hopefully that will dovetail with management's current effort to get the ship, and when the sea trials are done, any refit necessary, any corrections, fully complemented, fully trained, then off it goes. It is christened, and OT8 is delivered. That's done.
Okay, so here's what's interesting. Again, you guys have been watching a lot of Scientology videos for a while, know that the pitch for OT9 and 10, David Miscavige says, all Scientology orgs in the world need to expand to the size of Old St. Hill. That's the Scientology organization in St. Hill, England. That org is an org that L. Ron Hubbard personally ran as the executive director in the 60s. It was also at that time the international headquarters of Scientology. So it was artificially very, very big because it wasn't just another Scientology organization. It was the only place in the world you could come and get trained as an auditor by L. Ron Hubbard on what they called back then the St. Hill Special Briefing Course. Okay, they have this myth about how big St. Hill was when L. Ron Hubbard was running it. They created this myth, they created these numbers, and then they said every org in the world needs to reach that size, and they call it St. Hill size, before they can release OT9 and 10. So here's where it starts not to make any sense. Why? Why must we wait for OT9 and 10? Well, as a Scientologist, it was always explained to me that it had something to do with Scientology needing to have had a certain amount of impact on the emotional state of the planet so that the planet was sort of calm enough to be able to handle the power of OT9 and 10. Don't think about it too deeply. You might come to realize you're in a cult, but this was sort of the explanation that was given. Scientology needed to have a certain foothold in the world before the world could be ready for OT9 and 10. And they just arbitrarily said that when the 150 Scientology organizations that exist, more or less, reach the size of Old St. Hill, that should just about give Scientology enough of a foothold in society and on the planet to be able to release OT9 and 10. In reality, these are just bullshit benchmarks or goalposts that get set that are completely unobtainable and can never be reached. Okay. That, as a good little Scientologist, is what I always understood to be the reason OT9 and 10 couldn't be broadly released. But now as I sit here and I watch this event and I hear Pat Broeker's words, I go, Pat, if you are allowed to know what's on OT9 and 10, why can't every other Scientologist? It actually doesn't make a damn bit of sense. Now, I understand it's not supposed to make sense because it's cult mind conditioning. But to a Scientologist, it's supposed to make sense. I thought it made sense to me. And it's really not until I'm watching this that I realize, oh, shit, that doesn't even make sense to me. This is another reason, in my opinion, that David Miscavige would not want Scientologists to see this video. Scientologists would not want people to see that back in 1986, Pat Broeker, a guy who's not even in Scientology anymore, was aware of what was on OT 9 and 10, had full access to L. Ron Hubbard's worksheets, was able to be exposed to secret knowledge that everyone else couldn't be exposed to. Here's what's crazy, guys. This speech is being given when OT 8 hasn't even been released. So is Pat Broeker OT 8? Is he OT 9? Is he OT 10? If he could be OT 10, why can't anyone else be OT 10? Don't ask too many questions. Don't think about it too deeply.
OT 9 and OT 10 are also written up, finished. There are several other OT levels that it is my job to compile.
Wow. So guys, I mean this sincerely. And if anyone very specifically disagrees with me on this, please let me know in the live chat or in the comments section for the replay crew. When Pat Broeker says right there, OT 9 and 10 are fully written up and delivered, David Miscavige does not yet know that that's not true. So the last 6 years of L. Ron Hubbard's life, when Pat and Annie were with him, Pat and Annie had nothing to do with managing the organization of Scientology. They were basically just L. Ron Hubbard's caretakers. David Miscavige also was not in charge of running Scientology. That fell to the Watchdog Committee, the senior-most members of the Commodore's Messengers organization. David Miscavige had been assigned to a special project of trying to get rid of all of the outstanding legal threats against L. Ron Hubbard, so L. Ron Hubbard could come out of seclusion. At some point in time, he also took on the position of the executive director of Author Services International. ASI is L. Ron Hubbard's literary agency. So I could be misremembering this, but this is just to the best of my recollection, that David Miscavige was basically he was the in charge of the special project to clear away all the legal threats. Because that project was a project sort of for L. Ron Hubbard personally, it sort of made sense for David Miscavige to be the executive director of Author Services. I think these two things he was sort of just being both. Now, running Author Services has nothing to do with managing Scientology organizations. Author Services does nothing but raise money, collect money from L. Ron Hubbard's fiction works, collect a royalty for L. Ron Hubbard from all Scientology books, has nothing to do with Scientology management. So during this time, oh my God, I completely just lost my train of thought. But it had to do with the fact that the whole time that, oh, that's right, because it has to do with the OT levels. Pat Broeker is the one who, after L. Ron Hubbard died, claimed to be in physical possession of OT 9 and 10. And the notes, the research notes for the other unreleased upper OT levels beyond OT 9 and 10. As long as Pat claimed that those things exist and that he had them, and as long as David Miscavige believed that was possibly true, Miscavige couldn't get rid of Pat Broeker. It wasn't until Miscavige orchestrated a raid on the facility where Pat Broeker claimed to have these materials. And by the way, Mike Rinder was with Pat Broeker on that raid. It's in his book. They showed up with cars and trucks and guns to the facility where Pat Broeker claimed these materials were, and said, we have a man on the inside. The feds are about to raid this facility. And if that happens, the feds are going to have the upper level materials. We have to get rid of everything. We have to load up everything and get out of here right now. It was through that raid and through going through every scrap of paper that Pat Broeker had from L. Ron Hubbard that Miscavige realized Pat was lying about everything. So it's Pat Broeker who told all the Scientologists in the world that management was in possession of the fully completed OT 9 and OT 10. Imagine David Miscavige's surprise when he realized, ruh-roh, there ain't no such thing. And then I just thought it was noteworthy that Pat Broeker is the only one who is unbelievably nervous, uncharacteristically flustered for a Sea Org executive. And I'm telling you, I think it's because he's the only one up on that stage who knows everything he's saying is a lie.
It consists of taking what he has written and putting it essentially in paragraph form, adding the appropriate HCOB references that entail that go along with the auditing necessary to do this particular level, and they'll be released in due course. We have materials that are in this form in a thick sheaf of notes per folder of OT11, OT12, OT13, and so forth, and then about a stack this high to be sorted out for subsequent OT levels.
Yes. So it is interesting that he says only OT 9 and 10 are the ones that are actually written up, completed, and ready for release. And everything else requires him to compile. Okay, so let's see. That was, oh, check this out. This is where Pat talks about a new OT level that you can do when you're ready to die.
We also, by the way, have the OT level that is going to be done immediately after every Thetan discards his or her body. He wrote that up before he went.
There's literally no good explanation for why he's calling it an OT level, but we'll ignore that for now.
Invitation. Now, this, don't take that as an invitation because you don't get it till you're through with the OT level before it.
But which OT level comes before it, Pat?
But know that when it's time, the tech is there, so you're not left with what do I do now, or even having to figure it out for yourself. It's there.
You see, this is what Scientologists are preoccupied with. What exactly is going to happen to me when I die? How do I make sure I skip the between lives implant stations? How do I make sure I remember Scientology? How do I make sure I come back to a Scientology family? That kind of stuff.
That will be written up right away because we have that word for word, and it'll be archived and made safe, and it will be eventually available at FLAG and other AOs, and people will be allowed to come into AOLA before they discard it, read the materials, check out on them, be word cleared, demo. So you know it.
Now, guys, this is insane on many levels. It implies that a Scientologist would be, for some reason, ready to die, and yet still in good enough health to go into the local advanced org. By the way, in the United States, there's only two of them, one in LA on L. Ron Hubbard Way and one in Clearwater, Florida called FLAG. Still be in good enough health to go into the org, study about what you're supposed to do, word clear it, get checked out on it, and clay demo it. Dare I say that if you're healthy enough to do those things, I would question why you're ready to die. It don't make no damn sense. Let's keep going.
Now you know it. Now you're ready for when it happens.
This would be another reason David Miscavige does not want any Scientologist watching this video, because I'll tell you something. No such thing as what Pat Broeker is describing was ever released. Now, you've heard us talk about something called the end of life assist. It is also sometimes called the last CS. That is a real thing. That is a very, very real thing. It's usually done to people who are like incapacitated in a hospital bed. No one is being called into the local org to receive the end of life assist. It's like literally done hours or days before someone dies. And so that's not what Pat Broeker is talking about. He's actually talking about some completely different thing. You would also never hear the end of life assist referred to as an OT level. That's what's crazy about this. The OT levels are supposed to, this is easier to believe as a Scientologist when you have no idea what's on them, put you in a position, take you to a place spiritually where you are like all powerful. You're also like telepathic. You practically have telekinesis. You can go in and out of your body at will. And he's talking about some weird OT level that will allow you to know what you do when you die. None of this makes sense, even from a Scientology perspective. Now, you'd never know it from the applause from the audience. But I'm just giving you my take on it. You other former Scientologists, maybe even people who are at this event, please let me know what your thoughts are about all of this. All right, let's keep going.
He finished his job. There's not much else to say except that what he came to do, he did. Now that he's out there, now he embarks upon his further OT research at a completely new level. That's exactly what he's doing now.
Okay, good. And then, of course, you're going to have the mandatory multi-minute standing ovation here. I actually forget how he ends this. Let's find out. He's just about to wrap it up.
And the fourth and last thing I want to say, this is important. This is very, very important.
Pay attention, guys. If you haven't been listening yet, pay attention.
If you learn nothing else here tonight, then learn this. If you take nothing with you, take this.
I think he meant to say if you take anything with you. I'm such an armchair quarterback.
There is there is only one source. Right? It's very important you understand that. Of course, you know you're here. But
by the way, for any who doesn't know, source is what they call L. Ron Hubbard.
Let me just hone in on it a little bit. Source does not pass to management. Source does not pass from LRH to any other Thetan. Source is source.
Guys, this is why whenever David Miscavige comes up with some new initiative or program or series of orders that directly contradicts what L. Ron Hubbard said should be done, he has to figure out how to convince Scientologists that they have just discovered, a lost to L. Ron Hubbard directive or something like this. Anytime David Miscavige wants to change something in Scientology, he has to convince Scientologists that this is what L. Ron Hubbard really wanted, and some evil, suppressive, secretary or communication router screwed everything up. Because Scientologists, this is what Scientologists believe. There's only one source, and David Miscavige doesn't have some telepathic communication with L. Ron Hubbard, which, by the way, a real Scientologist would ask, why not? if we all have telepathic communications with each other, which is what OTs pretend that they do, why would we not be able to have telepathic communication with the biggest OT of them all, L. Ron Hubbard? Don't think about it too deeply, guys. You might realize you're in a cult. Okay, let's see what else he says.
What made Source? What is it about LRH that was Source? His technology, his discoveries, his grades, his OT levels. Nobody else ever discovered it. He did. That's what made him Source, and we still have that. Therefore, Source is with us, and it is him. If you remember that there was only one, and will be only one, and there is only one, no other management body, no other individual, then you'll be okay. Because now you know whose stuff to read, whose stuff to apply, and don't listen to the others. And if you do apply his stuff, then you're there. It's as simple as that. Thank you for listening to me.
That is interesting. I know it's easy to think that he's throwing shade at David Miscavige there, but at this point, there would have been no reason to throw shade at David Miscavige in this particular way for that particular reason. There was one of the most senior Scientology technical officials was a guy by the name of David Mayo. I do not remember what year David Mayo broke away from Scientology and started to create his own organization. Let me see if I can. When did David Mayo leave Scientology? If anyone in the live chat knows. Oh, 82. Ooh, damn. Okay. He was probably talking about David Mayo, because when he says, you know, whose stuff to read, who other stuff out there whose other stuff would have been out there to read? Like that wasn't really a thing in Scientology. But David Mayo was actually taking a lot of people were leaving the Church of Scientology to go and join David Mayo's clinic. Was it in Hawaii? Was it in California? I forget. Oh yeah, he also might have been throwing shade at Captain Bill, who created an organization called Ron's Org. Captain Bill did claim to be in telepathic communication with LRH and did claim to have created all the upper OT levels and all that good stuff. Okay, so let's see. I don't necessarily really want to go through the rest of it, but let's see how David Miscavige introduces the other members of management.
I want to make sure, as a next step, we want to make sure that all of you here in this audience and anybody else watching this on television via satellite, and this is also being taped so that Scientologists may see it for the next few weeks, we want to make sure that all of us end cycle on this completely so we can get on with the job that is ahead of us. So now I'd like to introduce Mr. Norman Starkey, who is going to perform the funeral service for L. Ron Hubbard as written by L. Ron Hubbard. Please welcome him.
Okay, we're definitely not going to watch this, but it is interesting to see Norman Starkey. He was one of the most prominent and important figures in Scientology, at least to me, as a good little Scientologist. He was one of the executives who would speak at every single event. He is one of the executives who has also, you could say, gone missing. I think there is on davidmiscavige.org. I think Norman Starkey did one of those ass-kissing videos saying what a great guy David Miscavige was. Norman Starkey was always introduced to the Scientologists as L. Ron Hubbard's trustee, the trustee of L. Ron Hubbard's estate. So that was his sort of claim to fame, at least in my eyes. And the ceremony is quite long, quite boring. Let's see what David Miscavige says when he comes back on stage here.
Are you all in cycle? All right. Now, I'm going to bring on some people from international management, people that you've seen before, who are going to talk to you about the future of Scientology and what we're going to do in this new era that we are entering in Scientology expansion. These people are the CEO of the Commodore's Messenger Org International, Mr. Marc Yager, the ED International, Mr. Guillaume Lessev, the Inspector General of the RTC Network, Ms. Vicki Aznaran, the Senior CS International, Mr. Raymond Midoff, and the President of the Church of Scientology International, Mr. Heber Jentzsch.
Okay, what they say in this event is not particularly interesting, to be honest, but I did want to show that these Scientology executives were brought out at the time. These people, other than Vicki Aznaran, continued to be very high level, very public and prominent executives in Scientology who spoke at every Scientology event, just like Mike Rinder. Actually, it's interesting that Mike Rinder's, I wonder where Mike Rinder was, organizationally speaking, at the time of this event. He mentioned the Inspector General of RTC, Vicki Aznaran. That's yet another reason David Miscavige would never want Scientologists to see this video. That is essentially the post that David Miscavige ended up taking. He was now this changed over time. At one point, chairman of the board RTC and the Inspector General RTC, to the best of my recollection of the Command Channels booklet, was the same thing. It's like COCMO int and WDC chairman are the same thing, same post, same person. COB RTC and Inspector General, same thing, same post, same person. Now, later, the Inspector General of RTC became a junior position created under chairman of the board RTC. Essentially, Vicki Aznaran was the head of RTC before David Miscavige was the head of RTC. Well, what happened to Vicki Aznaran? Well, fast forward to the Ted Koppel interview with David Miscavige. Vicki Aznaran had left the Sea Org, had left Scientology, and was suing Scientology. Let me try and share this with you. Here, what I want to do is try to fast forward to the part of this video. I guess I'll go this way, where Vicki, oh, look, there's Heber. In the package that they played before David Miscavige's interview with Ted Koppel, they actually had footage with Vicki Aznaran, and I'm dedicated to finding it. This is worth the dead air, folks. Oh, here we go.
To say it still goes on.
They hire private detectives to harass people. They run covert operations.
This is the same Vicki Aznaran that David Miscavige just introduced as being the Inspector General of the Religious Technology Center.
You name it. They have never quit doing it. It would they would have to quit being Scientology if they quit doing that.
Vicki Aznaran is a former high-ranking church official who lost a power struggle with David Miscavige over control of the church after Hubbard's death. She is presently suing the church and claims she heard Miscavige order attacks on troublemakers.
He said that we will use public people. We will send them out to the dissidents' homes, have their homes broken into, have them beaten, have things stolen from them, slash their tires, break their car windows, whatever. And this was carried out, and it was being carried out at the time I left.
Church officials vigorous.
It's interesting. I have heard, I think I heard Mike Rinder say that Miscavige thought that Vicki Aznaran was just some sort of a hillbilly redneck hick. And my question would be, how did that hillbilly redneck hick rise to the highest level of the Scientology management thing? And it's interesting that they say the power struggle was between Vicki Aznaran and David Miscavige. This is a little bit of what I was explaining before. While Pat Broeker and Annie Broeker were off with L. Ron Hubbard, they had nothing to do with running Scientology. And David Miscavige didn't really either. It was Vicki Aznaran, and it was the executives of RTC and CMO who were actually running Scientology. David Miscavige wasn't. So in some respects, when Pat Broeker and Annie Broeker were promoted to the rank of loyal officer, it was like, oh, okay, so these two people who are L. Ron Hubbard's closest confidants and friends are going to come over and take over running the church. That was part of why David Miscavige was like, hell no, you're not. You don't know shit. And it's interesting that Mike Rinder has also explained that it might seem that L. Ron Hubbard took the people he trusted and cared about the most. But Mike Rinder explains it by saying he really just took the two people who were the most expendable and weren't really doing anything. I don't know. I feel like you could kind of describe anyone in Scientology's international management that way to some extent. Were any of them really doing anything important? Were they all just running around doing busy work? It's sort of how it has come to seem. So you had Pat and Annie Broeker who were promoted to loyal officer, but in the meantime, you had people like Vicki Aznaran and the people running the Commodore's Messengers, CMO Int, the Commodore's Messengers Org Int, who were actually running Scientology. David Miscavige had to get rid of all of them before he could take control of Scientology, and that is exactly what he did. Okay, so let me see here. I do not really, we're not going to go through the entire rest of this video, but I want to show you, I just want to show you Marc Yager speaking for a sec.
Without criminals and without war.
You know, I said before kind of like what a Scientology Sea Org executive tends to look and sound like. Marc Yager looks and sounds like what a Sea Org executive tends to look and sound like, as opposed to Pat Lickety Lips Broeker.
Where the able can prosper and honest beings can have rights, and where man is free to rise to greater heights. We are achieving those aims, and we shall continue. There are many things that we have.
There you go. That is Vicki Aznaran standing right there to the left of the left as we see it of Heber Jentzsch. Okay, so let me fast forward so we can just hear a few words from Heber Jentzsch. He also tends to look and sound like what a Sea Org executive does.
The third is the group itself. The executors of the plans, procurers of the means, and enjoyers of the victories. We have the postulated goal of a clear planet, as postulated by LRH. We have the resources of a strong, dedicated on-policy management. We have in each of you as individuals the people who make those plans a reality and enjoy the victory.
Heber tends to be a little more theatrical. I believe he was actually a theater performer. He tends to be a little more theatrical than any other Sea Org executive. But, you know, he's at least not flustered, you know. Oh, this is great. A salute to L. Ron Hubbard. Guys, you guys have seen the cringy salute that David Miscavige and Tom Cruise gave to L. Ron Hubbard. Let's see the salute they gave to L. Ron Hubbard when he died.
Made a decision, the five of us, in the past several hours, the five of us made a decision, and in making that decision, we reaffirmed our own determination to make those goals and the aims of Scientology and the many sub-products to those become a reality. And before I leave tonight, I'd like to ask you to join me from each of your positions in reaffirming that goal to LRH with a salute to him. Salute. 2. Thank you very much.
There you go. I did edit that a little bit out, so you don't have to wait for everyone in the audience to stand up. Okay, David Miscavige's closing remarks, shall we? Let's see what the little fella had to say. Here we go.
I hope you feel briefed. We wanted to make sure that we were able to give you this information before you heard it on other lines, and it appears that that is the case, and I'm thankful for that. I think it is appropriate that we end this evening's event with an applicable quote from LRH out of Run's Journal 67, and it says it all. Thank you.
Thank you very much for being here. I appreciate what you're doing. I need your help, and I'm very grateful for what you have done. Goodbye for now. I will see you up the line at the other end of the bridge.
Okay, good. That last line there is also something to me that always indicated L. Ron Hubbard was not coming back. I will see you somewhere up on the line. Wait, let me see what it actually says again there. Hold on. Somewhere up the line. I just want to get it accurate. Sorry, guys.
Of the bridge. I will see you up the line at the other end of the bridge.
Right. That to me, I always interpreted that to mean that you will not get to where I am until you have completed the entire bridge, because only then can you somehow leave Earth or reincarnate. It's weird. L. Ron Hubbard did say, even if you make it all the way to the top of the bridge, you do want to come back to Earth and help everyone else on Earth get onto and up the bridge. But just that phrase there, I'll see you somewhere on up the line at the other end of the bridge. I was like, that doesn't sound like the guy's coming back. It never even crossed my mind as a possibility that L. Ron Hubbard would be coming back when I was a true believing Scientologist. I was shocked in 2009 when some of the former high-level executives were speaking out publicly for the first time and telling these stories about expecting L. Ron Hubbard to return. I don't know. I feel like I linger on this point more than I hear anyone else lingering on this point. But I was like, how can international management have been told something completely different than all other Scientologists in the world? And I remember asking Mike Rinder about this. I was like, didn't you ever wonder why all the other Scientologists in the world didn't think he was coming back? And he said something like, he either said like, I never thought about it, or he didn't realize that the other Scientologists in the world didn't know he was coming back. But he also said, I never really gave it much thought. I was like, okay. So I tend to think a little bit more about these things than maybe some people. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know, guys. I don't know why it's such a big deal to me. Okay. So that whole video, if you happen to want to, rewatch any part of it, outside of this reaction video, is available on my channel in the video section. Oh my goodness. The lovely Barb in the back office has been helping me star comments. We have so many. And yeah, I'm going to go through them. I guess I do want to remember to mention one more time, for those of you who are just joining and maybe don't want to watch the whole video on replay, I am going to be chopping this bad boy up and posting clips to the Growing Up in Scientology Clips channel. So you can subscribe to that channel if you would like. Okay, let's see. JM Ledger. I couldn't watch the whole thing when it first came on. I thought it was a Saturday Night Live parody. Marilyn, Coffee, Colts, and Crafts. Awesome to see you in here, Marilyn. That was so creepy. Yes, Sir Crepitus. Wonderful to see you in here. The intro music at the event was insanely creepy. Yes, we skipped the music at the end of the video. The end of the video is the Sea Org Honor Guard music that they still play to this day every year at Sea Org Day. Spoiler alert, it's pretty cheesy. Okay, Ellen Bates Boardies. We had no idea, except we were expected to be there. It was insane. Eileen, you were at the event. You know who else was at the event? Dylan Gill texted me and says he was at that event in Clearwater when it happened. I forgot, Dylan, it didn't occur to me to ask you, where was the event held? Did you guys watch it in the Fort Harrison? Did they rent Ruth Eckert Hall back then? That would be really interesting to know. That is very cool, Eileen. Does Captain Munchkin really have that deep voice? He does. He does have kind of a deep voice for being such a little fella. Okay, Ren listens. Pat Broeker was exhibiting all the physical signs of lying. Yeah, guys, I know there's 2 or 3 YouTube channels that specialize in reading body language. Is it the body panel expert? I'm gonna let me just Google YouTube real quick, because I get so many messages from you guys on different videos being like, "Oh, this would be a great video for this channel to analyze and break down." And if you guys are in the comments section of those videos, please recommend that they do take a look at some of these segments of these videos, because it would be amazing. So body language. Let me Google this right. Body language experts. What comes up on YouTube? Oh, the behavior panel. They've got about 1 million subscribers. And that seems to be the main one, actually. The behavioral arts. Yeah. Yeah, Mark Bowden. Yeah, there's so many. Oh, you know what would be another fun one? If they broke down David Miscavige's interview with Ted Koppel. That would be awesome. Okay, Edib Hussein. How do you spell Guillaume Leserve? It's like Guillaume. Last name Leserve is my best guess there. Constance, good to see you. I saw this and was like, that is Pat Broeker. Oh, that is Pat Broeker? I was expecting more from him. I know what you're saying. RFS tables. Mike Rinder is the only one missing. I wonder where he was. I do wonder where he was. Ren listens. You mean the Jaws Planet of the Apes intro? Stevie J, I saw so many good bands at the Palladium. I did not realize Scientology held events there. I don't think Scientology ever held another event at the Palladium. I think it was just a one-off. Noticing Enjoyer says, hey, big guy, was Pat Broeker making a power play at this speech? Is that why he said there's only one source and that authority does not pass to anyone else, while saying he had the unreleased OT levels? I do think in some respects he was making a bit of a power play. I just don't know that he was very specifically making a power play against Dave. Actually, saying that he was personally in possession of OT 9 and 10, and also saying that it was his personal job to compile and release LRH's notes, that very much was a power play. And even at that time, that actually would have been a power play, partially directed at Dave, in my opinion. How old was DM at the time? I think he was 23 or 24 years old. Incredibly young. Okay, Ken's channel. It was the last time that Dave didn't choose the podium. You can see him look at it like, fuck, I'm barely taller than this thing. Yes. From then on, all podiums were custom made for Dave's height. It is funny seeing Ray Midoff. Marc Yager might look tall. Ray Midoff is huge. Ray Midoff is like a giant. Seeing Ray Midoff walk up to a podium that comes up to like David Miscavige's belly button is hilarious. Ken's channel says it was the, oh no, that's the one I just read. Oh no, Nora says, I was 10 years old when I watched this. It is still wild. Wow, Nora, I got to ask you where you watched it. And also for some of the old timers, I'm wondering, like, did they have this on replay in the orgs for a while? I mean, there must have come a time when it was forbidden from ever being played again. But was this actually, you know, kind of like these days, after an IAS event, they'll replay the IAS event in the video, like in the reception area, they'll replay the video for like weeks. I wonder if that's how they treated that event. Windy City Thetan Watch, good to see you, man. Is there any advance that isn't above and beyond what any of us could conceive? All right. I know they're always so hyperbolic in their descriptions of all this stuff. Blake Reed, good to see you, Balake. He just made up more crap right there, right? That apparently there's an even higher plane of existence or consciousness just for LRH. Yeah, no, exactly. I mean, L. Ron Hubbard was always supposed to be at that bleeding edge of spiritual advancement. And, you know, you're always told that you can't even conceive of the level of gain that exists 2 levels above you. You can only conceive of the gain that exists 1 level above you. I thought it was such a weird thing for him to say, that you can only do the OT level to help you die after you've finished the OT level before it. And you're like, dude, what are you talking about? No one's finished OT 7 yet. OT 8 hasn't even been released. OT 9 and 10 aren't even on the horizon. What OT level comes before the one that lets you die? That's where I wonder if he was ad-libbing some of that. Karen Tootie Greeny, Mrs. G. The symbol behind David Miscavige is different from the Scientology logo, I think. It looks like an O with a T inside. Perhaps OT levels? Yes, that symbol was the OT symbol. Victoria, had David Miscavige already taken over by this time? And whatever happened to Pat Broeker? Nope. David Miscavige was not in charge at this time. There was no single person in charge, actually. And that's how it was always supposed to be. You have the Church of Scientology International as the mother church. As a part of that structure, you have what's called the International Management Executive Committee, which is about 11 or 12 senior Scientology executives who work underneath the Executive Director International. And they're supposed to issue programs into the orgs, and all the programs are supposed to be in accordance and based on L. Ron Hubbard policy letters. And then above the so-called mother church, you have the Commodore's Messengers Org International. And in that organization, you have what's called the Watchdog Committee, which again is like 11 or 12 of the most senior Scientology officials. It's a little bit of somewhat of a redundancy between the Watchdog Committee and the International Management Executive Committee. But again, you have like 11 or 12 people on each one of these committees. So the Church of Scientology International is essentially run by the Executive Director International and what you could call about 11 deputies. And then the Commodore's Messenger Org International is senior to the Church of Scientology International, and that's run by the Watchdog Committee. And then you have RTC, which isn't really supposed to manage anything, but is supposed to be in charge of the trademarks and the service marks and kind of monitor for purity. You're not supposed to have one person in charge. And that's one of the reasons why when L. Ron Hubbard died, there wasn't one person in charge. And even when David Miscavige took over as chairman of the board of RTC, there still wasn't just one person in charge. David Miscavige might have been the most senior Sea Org member, but there was still these committees in place who actually did stuff. David Miscavige has literally dismantled and disbanded the Watchdog Committee and the International Management Executive Committee, and there literally is now one person in charge. It was never supposed to be that way. Okay, Ardnet, serious question. Do they got LRH frozen somewhere, or did they just toss him into the dirty? Oh, that's one of the things that Earl Cooley announced is L. Ron Hubbard was cremated and his ashes spread at sea. Tina McBride, is AD after Dianetics? Yes, that is exactly what AD means when a Scientologist says it. Swedish, Andrea, is it bring your child to work day? I can understand why you would feel that way. David Miscavige is a small person. Okay, first gen SPs. I was in Department 6 at FSO at this time. FSO is flag, you guys. Davey changed so much. I blew a year later. Very, very happy that I did. Department 6 is the Department of Registration. That's where Scientology auditing and courses are sold. And there you go, first gen SP. Thank you for commenting and good to have you here. Okay, let's see. Oh, Drew Goo. So Tom Cruise can do telekinesis? How does he justify not being able to? I would like to know the same question. OTs are supposed to be able to be telepathic and move shit. And if you read Scientology's, every now and then, Scientology's advanced organizations will send out magazines that have success stories from life, OT phenomena. They will have stories from Scientologists who are doing the OT levels, and they will tell stories of essentially moving things with their minds and stopping time and practically teleporting and being telepathic. And you're like, okay, then why does Scientology have so many problems if it's run by a group of OTs who have OT powers? And I can tell you that when I was in the Sea Org, and I'm talking, I left the Sea Org in 2006. I can tell you that from 2002 to 2006, the stuff that David Miscavige was doing and the things he was saying and the clues he was dropping had us all convinced that David Miscavige was doing OT10. We thought David Miscavige was doing OT10. OT10, OT9 and 10 are called orders of magnitude and character. And I might have them reversed. I don't remember which one is which one is character and which one is orders of magnitude. But all of a sudden, David Miscavige started using the phrase orders of magnitude all the time in his events, and all the new big programs and campaigns he was launching was all thinking bigger and bigger orders of magnitude. And we're like, oh my God, he's on OT10, isn't he? And so, people do expect that David Miscavige has some kind of supernatural powers. And people would expect, at least Scientologists, would expect that after all these years and all these decades, that the upper echelon of Scientology management would all be at extra high levels of the bridge. Then why is Scientology failing as hard as it is? Why is its membership shrinking? Why is its reputation and PR worse than it's ever been? Why is it that no Scientologist has ever actually demonstrated any of these OT abilities ever, including L. Ron Hubbard? Because he never came back. I've said it, guys. If he came back, if L. Ron Hubbard came back and just proved to the world that Scientology was true, everybody would join Scientology. He could have done his fellow Scientologists a favor and just come back like he promised all Scientologists they would be able to do. Maybe he should have led by example. Spoiler alert, guys. It's just a cult, and he's just a con man, and it's all bullshit. That's the real answer. Okay, Balake says, what's as is in this video? The P running down David's leg. Sorry if I used the wrong word. As is in Scientology, which I didn't hear them use that word. As is a word that means mentally, once you spot or see something for what it really is, it ceases to exist. It erases, it disappears. That's called as-ising something. Okay, Lopink 1. If scatology is making people better, then why couldn't someone become a new source? It's actually a very interesting question. I hadn't thought about it that way. L. Ron Hubbard, it was very important to L. Ron Hubbard that people see him and consider him as the only possible source of true and correct and workable information. And that alone makes Scientology a cult, in my opinion. SPTV Atlanta, research has shown that this moment of supreme cognitive dissonance actually causes many cult members to double down on their beliefs. I totally believe that. Smooth Steve, thank you for the question. Answered that earlier. It's the OT symbol. And I am going back to old comments, so that's why some of these are asking about things that have already been addressed, which is totally okay. Victoria, does he write his own speeches? And had he taken over by then? At that point in the video that we just watched, I believe everybody probably wrote their own speech. And nope, he had not taken over by then. The Holy Rogue, maybe it's the birthday game issue. I think you're talking about the reference to Target 2, and it very well may have been the birthday game issue. Okay, Kate Delight. How can he communicate his research? I think you're talking about L. Ron Hubbard, right? How can L. Ron Hubbard communicate his research to the other OT levels if he doesn't have a body anymore? Satellite phones? Oh my God, that didn't even occur to me. Kate Delight, what an excellent question. Yeah, what is the point of L. Ron Hubbard going off and doing OT research independent of his body and having dropped his body? How's he going to communicate that shit? That would be another reason that David Miscavige does not want anyone watching this video. Scientologists were not necessarily told, well, aside from in this event. So when my generation of Scientologists and everything that I read and listened to, I was not under the impression that L. Ron Hubbard was going off to further research upper OT levels. He was going off to Target 2 to get Scientology started on another planet. That's a little different than what Pat Broeker said at the event, isn't it? He said L. Ron Hubbard had to go research other OT levels. He didn't even say he was going off to Target 2. So yeah, what's the point of going off to research the OT levels if you're not going to be able to telepathically transmit that information to anyone in Scientology? And if you're not going to reincarnate and come back, don't think about it too deeply, guys. You might realize you're in a cult. I love that question. That was great. Okay, Incarnasoul. Doesn't this announcement imply that OT9 can only be accessed after you drop the body? No, it doesn't. It does seem, though, that no, it doesn't. It doesn't. Because it was the level above. Because realize Pat not only said that OT 9 and 10 were already done, written up, and ready to go, but that LRH's notes for basically OT levels 9 to 15. And now he didn't say 15 in the video, but the current Scientology bridge does go up to OT 15. It's not available. It's not released, but the bridge says that it's there. So Scientologists would probably say that what was implied at the event is OT 9 and 10 are done and ready to go. OT 11 through 15 were in note form and needed to be compiled by Pat Broeker. And that any OT levels beyond that, you could probably only do once you met up with LRH on Target 2 and found out whatever the hell he's been researching for the last 40 years. Don't think about it too deeply, guys. Okay, Blue Moon. So all those houses and apartments for L. Ron Hubbard aren't for his return, but for Davey, when the FBI raids start to happen. Yeah, it would be hard to hide out in those houses when the FBI raids start to happen because Scientology publicizes the locations of all those houses. Oh, you're talking about the CST bases. The CST bases. Yes, those were supposed to. Oh, it depends on which story you hear. I don't believe I ever heard that the houses, the caretaker houses, the CST bases, guys, those are the vaults that Scientology has built into the sides of mountains to store L. Ron Hubbard's works in a form that would survive a nuclear holocaust. I don't believe those houses are for LRH. Those houses are just there for the caretakers, for the people who are watching the vault. The house L. Ron Hubbard was supposed to come back to was the Bonneview Mansion on the International Management Base in Riverside County, California. But you might get different answers on this from different people. You know what I'm saying? Okay, power lies to paralyze. You can't make this shit up, but LRH's lawyers can. Indeed. Okay, Betsy Rue. When a person drops their body and comes back to a newborn, do they only pick up a new body in a Scientology family? I mean, not a random body, any belief system. Excellent question. A Scientologist would prefer picking up a body of a baby born into a Scientology family, and they try to work out those deals in advance. Now, you might be interested to know that on OT7, well, I guess it's probably true for OT3, 4, 5, and 7. When you're telepathically getting rid of your body thetans, and though what part of that process is you're supposed to, through the auditing process, the telepathic auditing process, that body thetan, you're getting rid of that body thetan's reactive mind. You're actually clearing, you're actually helping that body thetan achieve Scientology's state of clear. And then that body thetan is supposed to go off and pick up a body, but it doesn't matter what body that person, that thetan picks up. It doesn't have to be a Scientologist body because they're already clear. Isn't that crazy? So they can just pick up any body, any family, any religious belief, and they're just going to grow up to be a generally great person who improves the tone level of Earth. Interesting, right? This is what Scientologists believe, guys. Can't make this shit up. Eileen Bradley. I wonder what the cult would have been now if Pat was the leader. Less evil, maybe. The thing is, from what I'm told from the people who know Pat, he's really stupid. He's really dumb. Like I don't believe that Pat actually wanted to run Scientology. He had no interest in running Scientology. He just wanted to be able to have the power and the money and the leisure. He just wanted to continue to run LRH's horse farm, from what I heard from Mike Rinder. So it was very easy for Dave to get rid of Pat. And from what Mike has explained, so basically they were squirreling away all sorts of cash for L. Ron Hubbard by the millions. And I think the house that Pat was living in at the time on the ranch, on L. Ron Hubbard's ranch, they like had cash like in the walls, like behind the walls, just everything full of cash. And my understanding is that David Miscavige actually threatened to turn Pat Broeker into the IRS for tax evasion and money laundering. And that's part of the blackmail that he had over Pat to convince Pat to just go get lost, take a long walk and don't come back. Interesting stuff, huh? All right, let's see. Ooh, Nerman Odkin. Nerman, oh, you might be talking about, Nerman, I saw some of your chats in the live stream. I think you might be talking about Marc Yager. I served under him circa 1982, the year of the Clearwater court hearings with Paulette Cooper. Very interesting. Okay, let's see. I'm going to scroll through. I'm going to skip some of these. Oh, look at this. I don't know how to say this name. Love Tamer. I was a public in the Copenhagen org when the event was held. Pat was meant to take over as first loyal officer. That's right. Pat was first loyal officer and Annie was second loyal officer. I think it's absolutely incredible that David Miscavige was able to convince everyone that Pat Broeker had forged that document. Like, how would David Miscavige know that Pat Broeker forged that document? If David Miscavige wasn't with L. Ron Hubbard. Now, the thing is, it is totally possible that Pat Broeker forged that document. L. Ron Hubbard was not in his normal frame of mind. He had lost his mind. He was also, I believe, nonverbal after a major stroke the last week or two of his life. I could have these details wrong. I'm remembering it to the best of my ability of what I've heard and read. It's totally possible that Pat Broeker forged that stuff. But David Miscavige wouldn't know. David Miscavige was not L. Ron Hubbard's confidant or friend during the last 6 years of his life. Okay, let's see. Oh, I think I did already. Cult meeting podcast. Can you explain what he means when Pat holds up those numbers? Yes, that is the date of an incident that L. Ron Hubbard was running or recalling while doing OT10. And again, I don't know, like, is there even a word for a number that has that many zeros? What is Google? Is Google a million zeros? Let me see. What is a Google? No. Oh, 100 zeros. One followed by 100 zeros. Now, he said that was 15 across and 12 down, right? 15 across or 12 down. 15 times 12 times 3. Yeah, so 540 zeros. So 5 Googles. Is there a number for 5 Googles? Is there a number for 5 Googles? Google doesn't even know what the hell to give me in response to that question. Maybe I'll ask ChatGPT later. Kelly Copter, good to see you in here. Okay, I'm skipping some of these. Monique, love you, Aaron. Much respect. Thank you so much. Cricket Cinema. Does anyone know who stage managed this monstrosity? That would be good to know. I've never heard anyone. I've never heard any of the inside scoop behind how that event production went down. Let's see. Empath Lady. Aaron, do you have this old video in its entirety? Yes. Go to my videos tab on my channel. Most of my content, because I do live streams, is on my live tab. But if you go to my video tab, you can't miss it. It's there. It's about an hour and 14 minutes long. Joshua Cox says, my theory on why L. Ron Hubbard never finished OT 9 to 15. He ran out of ideas without including more body thetans. Josh, I agree with you completely. Also, L. Ron Hubbard never, I'm talking about in his own estimation, never succeeded in getting rid of his own body thetans. If you read ironically, it's actually Marty Rathman's book that goes into detail on this. I can't remember if Mike Rinder's book touches on this at all. Until he died, it's actually what contributed to his mania and his psychosis, is he kept finding more body thetans to get rid of. And, you know, Pat and Annie were two of the people that were with him, but there was another guy named Sarge, who was kind of the groundskeeper, or kind of the handyman for LRH. And he asked Sarge to wire up an e-meter connected to a battery with enough voltage that the electric shock would get rid of all of his body thetans and then kill his body. This was LRH's unusual solution for how to finally get rid of all of his body thetans. He actually wanted Sarge to help him kill himself. That is how obsessed L. Ron Hubbard was with getting rid of body thetans. And what's incredible is that, well, I mean, Pat, although Pat doesn't believe anything that he's saying there, right, is that L. Ron Hubbard would have achieved all this upper level OT research, and he was still struggling with his body thetans. Now, I realize this is all bullshit anyway, guys, but L. Ron Hubbard believed this shit. People ask, did L. Ron Hubbard believe his own bullshit? I think L. Ron Hubbard was a guy who couldn't tell you an incredible story about something that really happened without exaggerating in fantastic ways. I think L. Ron Hubbard is someone who would lie even when he was telling you the truth. And so even if L. Ron Hubbard didn't believe half of what he was saying, I still believe that he believed the core of what he was selling people. And even if that wasn't true in the very beginning, which I don't know, I think it was, but what do I know? I wasn't there. By the end, there really is no question that he believed his own bullshit. By the end, there really is no question. It drove him crazy. Okay, Daniel Snyder, thank you so much for gifting a channel membership. I appreciate that. Ren listens, if Pat did see OT 9 and 10, then why aren't we watching a dead man? I know, right? You know, a Scientologist might explain this away by saying that OT 3 and 5 are the real walls of fire. In Scientology, OT 3 is called the wall of fire. And L. Ron Hubbard tells the story on how he almost died physically, broke his back, broke his arm, broke his back, researching OT3 because the material he was recalling was just so powerful, and the psychic energy stored up in these incidents are designed to strike dead any man who dares to come close to encountering the truth of it. And that he had to personally forge this path and tape the path carefully so that others could safely follow. That's why OT3 is called the wall of fire. OT5 is called the second wall of fire. There is no other wall of fire after that, speaking in Scientology terms. And so somebody might argue that once you've gone past OT5, you can be exposed to the rest of the material without any damage. I'm just saying, like, if I were in Scientology and I was having to explain this away, that is how I would explain it away, on why Pat did not drop dead from looking at L. Ron Hubbard's OT9 worksheet or OT10 worksheets. Thank you for that. Powerlized to Paralyzed says, I pick Pat Broeker for COB. Hashtag Broeker for COB. Guys, I got to tell you, Pat Broeker could make millions of dollars on a book deal. I mean, that, like, just consider that, right? How much does Pat Broeker not want to talk about Scientology? Like, what do you think motivates Pat Broeker's silence? Is it fear? Is it embarrassment? Is it humiliation? Because this guy, could you imagine? I mean, Annie's dead, right? So Annie's dead. Sarge is dead. Dr. Eugene Denk is dead. That's the other guy that was with LRH when he died. Ray Midoff, senior CS Ray Midoff was with L. Ron Hubbard when he died, or just before he died. Ray Midoff is around, but you know, Pat Broeker was the guy who was there. But Ray Midoff was there at the end, but he was not with L. Ron Hubbard for the last 6 years. Pat Broeker could make a Google, a Google of dollars by writing the tell-all of L. Ron Hubbard's final 6 years and the true story of L. Ron Hubbard's death, the true story of the takeover of Scientology. It would be incredible. Someone's got to find this guy and convince him. Okay. Daniel Cathers. What is the document that Pat holds up that he claims is upper OT material? Yep, it's a worksheet from L. Ron Hubbard's OT, one of his OT 10 sessions. SP Spartacus, or Spartacus I am. I love that name. That's great. I wish my family and friends still in would watch this. Yes. Hunter Green, did you see Ricky Glazer's video about Aaron Cairo? Yes, I'm keeping up on all the Braille stuff, and I'm going to be doing a video about it as well. Thank you for that. Susie Q, shout out to the Under the Radar is going, what? Absolutely. If you're an Under the Radar guy and you watch this LRH death event video, you're going, uh-oh, I think we done messed up. Ren Listen says, since it looks like Pat doesn't really believe what he's saying or believe in Scientology, could he have burned OT9 and OT10? No. He would have no incentive to burn it. First of all, Pat did believe in Scientology. He absolutely did. But you know, it's kind of like David Miscavige, right? You believe in Scientology, but if you know the truth about what was happening with L. Ron Hubbard, you believe in a different way because you know which parts of it are bullshit. But it would have been first of all, it would have been in Pat Broeker's best interest for there actually to have been an OT9 and 10 and for him to have actually been in possession of it. He would have been able to keep living off of L. Ron Hubbard's money for the rest of his life. So, yeah, that's my opinion. Okay, let's see. Lara Gillespie. This is so cringy, blinking and lying body language. Yeah. Kim Wexler's ponytail. Are the audience laughing at Pat? No, they're definitely not laughing at him. For a Scientology executive, he was actually being pretty funny. Oh, make it go left. Why are they laughing when talking about discarding the body? So it's funny because from a Scientology perspective, I understood the laughs, but I was also very aware how to someone that had nothing to do with the subject, it would be kind of disturbing the things that they were laughing about. I guess it's just kind of Scientologists dropping the body is not supposed to be a serious affair. We've lived billions of lifetimes is what Scientologists believe, and we'll live a billion more. But yeah, Kim Wexler, I'm understanding now why Pat was not given the COB gig. Ken's channel says it's like The Highlander, the greatest movie ever made. There can be only one. I absolutely love that movie. Yeah, David Miscavige has in many ways positioned himself as source, even though he has to pretend like he hasn't. He really has. Stacy Toms says, Pat Broeker's source comment. Did he see that David Miscavige was positioning himself to take over as source? And was he warning everyone not to listen to David Miscavige? Stacy, in my opinion, at that point, he was not yet talking about Dave. I think he was talking about Pat Broeker, and I think he was talking about Bill. I'm sorry. He was talking about David Mayo, and he was talking about Bill Robertson, who had splintered off from Scientology. No, but Pat Broeker did specifically say source does not transfer to management. Source does not transfer to another Thetan. God, now that I think about it, his statements make more sense in the context of referring to someone that's still in Scientology, don't they? Something to chew on. Power lies to paralyze. When Pat says source, he's talking about CST, the corporation that owns the tech, as compared to church management. It's a warning. That's not what he's talking about, though, I promise you. That is not what he was talking about. He is talking about someone else being the source of new Scientology tech. Ken's channel, no joke, for 26 years old, Miscavige is quite composed up there compared to train wreck Pat. Yeah, I think he was actually 24. And he was very, very composed, even if not a little shy in the beginning. Okay, Carla's loving wife says, I agree that Marc Yager was the only one not to sound crazy or lying. He was very charismatic. What happened to him? He's he's still there. Marc Yager is still there. He's up at the International Management Base, working on programs at Golden Era Productions. I think the most recent thing I heard that has stuck in my head is working on a digitization project of taking all the Scientology records and materials that are stored on analog media and transferring them to digital. Otherwise, you've seen Marc Yager pop up in other videos, such as ambushing Marty Rathbun at LAX. There's some amazing videos where, what's her name? Jenny DeVocht or Jenny Linson and Marc Yager And it wasn't Greg Wilher. Who was that other weirdo that was with him? Ambush Marty Rathbun at the airport. Just Google. Oh my God. You know what? I've got to pull it up. Okay. Marc Yager, ambush, Marty Rathbun, LAX. Yeah, baby. Here it is. You guys ready for, oh my God, is my computer not even plugged in? Holy crap. That was almost a disaster. Okay. Y'all ready for this? I got to put in my earpiece. This video is crazy. This is actually on Marty's channel, believe it or not. He uploaded this 9 years ago. The same Marc Yager that we just watched. This is Marc Yager confronting Marty Rathbun at LAX. No one cares about you. You're not accomplishing anything. But 3 of Scientology's Barb, can you take that comment off the screen? It won't let me take it. Okay, I'll take it off. But 3 of Scientology's most senior executives are all going to LAX to handle you. There's Marc Yager, guys. But it's true. Marc Yager was actually has actually been one of the biggest victims of David Miscavige. I think it was in Mark Headley's book they called him the Swamp Man because David Miscavige made Marc Yager live outside and build himself a shelter out of bamboo and lived in, well, I mean, Mark calls it a swamp. I don't know if it's a swamp because I'm not familiar with the base, but yeah, they call him like the Swamp Thing or Swamp Man. He lived outside for either months or a year. Like, I mean, you know, real inhumane treatment. Eat more pizza now. Thank you for gifting 5 channel memberships. That's amazing. I appreciate that. Donna Hannah sent you an email about a behavioral analyst. Did you get it? Well, I'll check. I'm sure I got it. SBTV Atlanta. Isn't Marc Yager missing too? Well, I mean, aside from showing up at LAX, but yeah. Okay. Wasbier. Ron, hope you're having a great day. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Thank you for being in here. No one. Thank you so much. Lisa Gillespie, who was actually privy to L. Ron Hubbard's decline at the end? The drugs, declined mental and physical state. Anyone other than David Miscavige? Who of the group that's still in? So David Miscavige would only have been aware of whatever Pat Broeker informed him of. You had Pat Broeker, you had Annie Broeker, you had Sarge, you had Ray Midoff, knew what was going on, and you had Dr. Eugene Denk. Dr. Denk is dead. Annie is dead. Pat is still alive. Ray Midoff is still in Scientology, still in the C organization. So really, Ray and Dave, I guess. All right, let's see. Duchess Diana, do you think little Davey has Pat Broeker under observation? Not only did Dave have Pat Broeker under observation for decades, but then Scientology stopped paying the PIs and the PIs went public and spoke to the press. You guys got to look it up. It's probably all, I'm not sure if anyone other than Tony Ortega wrote about it. So it might just be on his blog, but search Scientology, Pat Broeker, private investigators. They were making what, $10,000 a week following this guy for about 25 years. And they continue to follow him. He moved to like Croatia or something. He lived in one of those countries and the PIs followed him there. One of the PI's fathers even befriended him, gave him a cell phone as a gift. This is back when, or a cordless phone, and then was able to listen in on all of his conversations because this is before the phone lines were encrypted. And let's be honest, guys. Pat Broeker could bring down Scientology. Pat Broeker, in my opinion, could bring down Scientology. And he's out there. Might need to go pay him a visit. Philosophy. Aaron, what level did you get to? I got very high up on the bridge. It was called the Purification Rundown. I never finished any grades. I never even did the objectives. I had a whole bunch of sec checking, had some FPRD, had a ton of, correction lists, had a ton of int rundowns, had a bunch of clay table auditing on key to life and LOC and pro TRs. But as far as actual levels of the bridge, purification rundown. And I didn't even do that until I was like 22. Yes, thank goodness. Let's see. How old is Pat now? I have no idea, but in that video, he must have been somewhere between 25 and 30, right? I don't think he's that much older than David Miscavige, but he could not have been older than 30, right? And that was 36 years ago, 37 years ago. So he could be in his late 60s, early 70s at the most, I'm guessing. Oh, no one said, we used to watch Highlander as a treat at the international base. Oh, for real? Oh, that would be fun for movie night. CC, is this CC Kruchko? You must be talking about Jenny. Jenny Linson is the sweetheart that kicked me out personally from AOLA in 1996. Yeah, the consensus is generally that Jenny Linson is one of the most wicked Sea Org members to have ever existed. Just like a truly awful person. Spartacus, Spartacus I am, SP Articus I am. Was this for the Thoreau documentary? You're talking about the footage at LAX. Good question. I wonder if that was around it might have been around Going Clear. Wasn't Marty Rathbun in Going Clear? I know he was Marty Rathbun in Going Clear? I don't remember, but it was around that time. Donna Hannah, Aaron, you really should contact him. You never know. Wait. Aaron, you really should see if you could contact him. You never know. Create the internet can track him down. Oh, he's not hard to track down, to be honest. Yeah. You never did the objectives and you became an auditor? You don't have to, on the lower level of the bridge, the non-confidential lower half of the bridge, you don't have to have received the auditing in order to give the auditing. It's only when you get up to the confidential levels, the OT levels, that you are required to have received them or have started them before you're allowed to have anything to do with delivering them. Okay, guys, this has been a long one. I can't remember the last time I did a video this long, but thank you for hanging in there with me. And if you want to watch the full thing, it's available in my videos tab. And one last plug for the Clips channel, because I really am going to start using it a lot. Check out Growing Up in Scientology Clips. There's only one real one. There might be some fake ones, so keep an eye out for that. All right, guys, thank you for hanging out with me. As always, thank you to everyone who watches until the very end. And I'll talk to you soon.
Okay, if you want to see my rock and roll songs, click right on this guitar. And if you want to see a different one of my videos, then you could click right inside here. If you have subscribed or not, subscribe.